Day 27. Still no Brian Laundrie. Welcome to Stillspeakpod. This is going to be very quick because there's been no developments whatsoever again today, but there was a lot of talk about how Brian could have left on the 13th because reporters were outside. Even Brian Ensign had said that to Josh Taylor, like I was out there, etc. And the other day, I said in one of my videos, it might have been yesterday or the day before that, I said that the reporters actually weren't out there as much as they are now. It really became hectic outside the house later in that week. There was reporters prior to the 17th when everything went to hell and we found out that Brian went missing, but it wasn't as active. So when I said that, I thought about it and I was like, I want to be able to back that up. So let me go back. So I dug through countless amounts of articles about Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie. I did so many different types of keyword searches on Google to find every article that has ever been written about this story. And there's a lot. There's a great deal. I went back and looked for every interview her parents did, every post on Twitter by the Northport Police. I looked at the Suffolk County that her mother originally filed at in Long Island, etc. And I just wanted to see how much reporters, pictures, articles took place prior to the 17th. Now, there's a ton on the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, the 17th. And then they quadrupled after the 17th, okay? But almost all the articles start after the 14th. I only was able to track down several, maybe 2 or 3 articles on the 13th, and they were very vague. It was basically Blue Point woman missing type of articles, didn't even have her name in them. And they kept referring to Brian as her traveling companion. Some of them called him her fiance. He wasn't even named either in the articles. And I recalled back to that time because I saw it on the 13th I think this is actually the 14th. I need to go back and look at my first video ever on the case. I believe I did it on the 14th. And I remember that police were going past the house and they were leaving what appeared to be pink envelopes. The parents did not seem to be home. And then there was that picture of them. It looks like so many pictures we have of them now, but they were returning home at one point. And so I was like, I need to track those down. What freaking day was that? And so I found articles that were dated the 14th, okay? But they had pictures from the 13th. How do I know this? Look at your screen. I'm going to put it on there. Well, the caption said on Monday. Monday was the 13th, but they were writing this article on the 14th. And the pictures were, if you recall, the father, Christopher, we now know him by, was doing yard work. He was sweeping the driveway, it looked like. That was on Monday the 13th, okay? And there was another picture of them coming home. That was also on the 13th. And there was pictures of the officers leaving the pink envelopes at the home. I have a picture of that as well. That was also on the 13th because it was the captions are saying that it was on Monday. When you look at those pictures, the Mustang's not there. Now, initially when the parents said that he left on the 14th, Brian Ensign immediately was like, well, here's the Mustang back in the driveway on the 15th and it wasn't there on the 14th, right? Well, we really didn't have a lot of footage to go off of what happened on the 13th, but we do now have these pictures that I'm seeing, and some of you may have noticed that already, but I'm bringing it to the attention of people who may not have seen them. And on the 13th, that Mustang was not in the driveway. Issue is that, she was reported missing in the evening of the 11th. I think it was like 6 o'clock. So, they made contact that evening, and then they took the van the following day, which was the 12th. And that's when the story started to kind of pick up a little bit, but it really wasn't until the 14th that the story kind of exploded. And then, like I said, on the 17th, when we found out that he took off, that's when the story went bananas, because now reporters started to really stay at the house because they realized, like, he left, nobody saw him, and so they started camping outside the house. So now if we go back to the parents' story and they say he left on the 13th, well, that these pictures actually back them up that that it wasn't the 14th, because it didn't make sense when we originally heard that, because the van came back on the 15th and they're saying that they took it back on the 16th, but now they moved it to the 13th, which means they brought the car back on the 15th, which lines up with Brian Enson's footage of the Mustang being back in the home on the 15th. So, as far as I can see, no, the Mustang is not there on the 13th. Now, question is, because next to nobody really knew of the story on the 12th, or the evening of the 11th, we don't know if the Mustang was in the driveway at that point, which is the issue, because people are starting to wonder, like, was he gone sooner? And I didn't look this up to back up the parents. That wasn't my motive. I looked this up because I wanted to make sure what I was saying was accurate. So when I did go back, all of the articles and pictures and videos and whatnot really only began on the 14th for the most part, because there's only a couple on the 13th, including the Suffolk County in Long Island's tweet about her being missing. And I mean, it depends on whether or not you believe he took the Mustang. Do you believe he took the Mustang and went somewhere and they brought it back? Well, I mean, it wasn't in the driveway for 2 days. So, I mean, unless one of the parents took it somewhere, I mean, that's possible. But we now have a gap, because the last person to basically claim to have seen Brian was his sister on the 6th. And we know that they camped on the 7th, and so you have this period of time. So you got like the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th, okay? So neighbors say they saw him mowing the lawn, riding his bike, and then doing that camping trip, but they didn't give us any dates. But we know that they saw him. Okay, according to them. And we know, according to Cassie, she saw him on the 6th. Now, the 10th is when the parents started calling his parents, and Joe Petito ended up telling them that he was calling the police. And on the 11th is when it was actually filed, and when Northport was contacted by Suffolk County, and they went to the Laundrie home. Originally, Northport was reporting multiple times they saw Brian, they just didn't speak to him. We've recently found out that was not true. That was probably some form of miscommunication. Maybe they assumed that the officer saw him, but later it was proven that he didn't. So, I think it would boil down to, was the Mustang in the driveway when police went there on the 11th? We know the van was there. And if you see their driveway, right, they have that camper, they have their truck, and then they have the Mustang. When all three are in that driveway, there's very little room. I'm sure they could probably fit the van if they really wanted to, but it is a small type of driveway. And we don't know that information because Northport has not said if they saw his or whoever's Mustang. We don't even know for sure it's Brian. I think we all assumed it was Brian's, but it may not be. Who knows? So we don't have that. We don't have that information. And I think that that's actually a really good point right there, because we now know it wasn't there the 13th and the 14th. So was it there the 12th and the 11th when police were going to the home trying to get, to talk to the parents? But if you take this thought process further, okay, he had that van, and he clearly didn't try hiding the van, which is really dumb, right? Because it was her van. And the fact that he came back is dumb, but taking the van back and leaving it in his driveway, I don't believe it was ever mentioned it was in their garage. I mean, although it could have been, that's never been said. So the fact that he brought that back, he didn't really seem concerned that the police would become looking for that van at some point. Or you would think that he would have abandoned it somewhere and had his parents pick him up, like arrive back in Northport and say, come pick me up at the bus station, and went and left it somewhere. But he didn't. He brought it to his house, okay? So if he did leave sooner than the 13th, I don't know. I would think that there would have been some type of thought process to take the van to wherever he's going and use that and remove it from his home, which connects him to her. Basically, what I'm saying is take the van, drive it to where everybody thinks he is, like the Appalachian Trail, leave it in some parking lot out there, and then take off into the mountains, and that's it, right? And then eventually at some point they'd find the van. Not leave it at his parents' house. Then again, this guy doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I just would think that if he was going to do that, he would have used the van rather than the Mustang. And it almost seems like he didn't leave until after the van was already taken, when he had no other option but to take the Mustang. That's my thought process. And I believe the van was taken late at night, after 11 o'clock at night on the 12th, because a neighbor said that they heard the beeping noise that a tow truck makes to back up, and they looked outside and they saw the van being towed. So if he waited until after the van was gone, right, and all he was left with was the Mustang to take, because he's not going to take his dad's truck, or what appears to be his dad's truck, then it would make sense that he left with the Mustang either very late on the 12th, which obviously would be something that you'd say, didn't the parents have questions on why he was leaving almost in the middle of the night to go camping in Carlton Reserve, or he left very early on the 13th, or sometime during the 13th, when there were reporters, just not as many as there are now. It also depends on if you believe the lawyer. Because the lawyer claimed he spoke to Brian on the phone in the presence of his parents on the 13th. Then again, Northport police said they did see Brian at the home on the 11th, so it really just depends on what you want to believe. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is, I think he did take off sometime late after at the end of the day on the 12th into the 13th, or on the 13th. And I think that it would have been his best interest to not just leave this van hanging out in his driveway and take that opportunity to get rid of it, basically, and use that as his transportation to somewhere and then just abandon it. Which, by the 10th, he knew that van was going to be an issue, because her parents were now in contact with his parents, and they were looking for her officially. And some of you might say, well, he had the van in the driveway and didn't seem to care for, X amount of days. And I would say, yeah, I agree with you on that. But on the 10th, like I just said, that is when he knew time was out. Her parents are looking for her, and they're going to be looking for that van. That's why I think at that point he would have taken the van and ditched it. Could he have left before that? Yes. Why? Because we now know Northport didn't see him on the 11th. I would love to know if they did see the Mustang. That would be a huge help. So I don't know. These are just thoughts that I had today, and I looked all that stuff up to see, and I wanted to share it with you. Since there's nothing else going on, and we've talked about every theory and possible scenario here, I still feel that he is alive out there somewhere. because, 27 days, yeah, you can make it 27 days. A 3-year-old, Christopher Ramirez, just made it in the woods by himself with nothing. All of Wednesday, all of Thursday, all of Friday, until yesterday. A 3-year-old, okay? So I do think it's possible he is out there and he's alive, and I do think that he's somewhere familiar. I know a lot of people don't think that he's in the Carlton Reserve. I think there is a possibility he's in there. I understand the alligators and all that other stuff, but if he's got a good location in there and he was familiar with it and where the good locations are, he possibly still could be there all this time. I know a lot of people think he's on the Appalachian Trail, which is freaking gigantic. So good luck finding him out there. He's not a big guy by any means. And I shared a video not long ago where it was all pictures of him from her Instagram where he's blending in with the environment or the elements and hiding and climbing. You can't see him unless you're looking for him. You're like, where's Brian? Where's Waldo? And then you spot him and you're like, oh, so he can freaking be anywhere on the Appalachian Trail. You'll never find him unless he comes out to restock at some point and exposes himself. But if he does that, he's going to be wearing a mask and a hat of sorts. I guarantee it, and I've said it before. One thing I've considered is, but real quickly, the Appalachian Trail. There's a picture that Gabby had on her, or a video on TikTok, where they were at Dragon's Tooth in the Appalachian Trail. So obviously that's a specific area that he would be familiar with. And she had a video, I'm going to put the picture in here, where he goes down to this stream, this creek stream thing, and there's running water, obviously, and he catches a fish with his bare hands. And I saw that and I was like, this, I was going to say a bad word, this NFer is definitely out there somewhere. If you can catch a fish with your bare hands, because I've tried, you have some experience. I'm just saying. But anyway, what I've been thinking is there should be some consideration by the FBI, and they probably have already, because I'm not going to pretend like I'm smarter than them, is that he actually has returned to one of the locations they visited together. Why do I say that? Because it's actually really rather common for a criminal to revisit a crime scene, okay? Not only that, but he would be currently familiar with those areas because he just visited there. So we're talking in Colorado at the sand dunes area, or Arches in Utah, or in Grand Teton, or nearby in Yellowstone, which they didn't go to Yellowstone, but it's close enough to Grand Teton that he, would be able to navigate. So I actually think that there is this possibility he could be out there. He may feel a closeness to his victim by being out there. Now, how did he get there? Well, that would be really hard to do, but a lot of people think he's in the Appalachian Trail. How did he get there? It would have to be, he took an Uber and he had money left over from the money that he took from the credit card, or he did take a bus. Bus tickets aren't that expensive, and most all transportation right now requires, guess what? A mask. Now, this wouldn't be an issue if this was 2 years ago, because I said the other day, if you saw some random dude with a mask 2 years ago, you would have been looking at him strange and wondering what he's up to. But now it's just an acceptable part of our society. So you wouldn't even think twice. Even Uber, requires you wear a mask. Now, I don't know if they currently have that rule. I know as of a month ago they did, at least in my area. So he could get there if he's got the money. And again, good freaking luck finding him if he went back out there. No way you're finding him. But I'm hearing all these theories like Mexico and Canada and Cuba and Appalachian Trail. And I'm like, why is nobody considering he went back to the scene of the crime? And I'm not talking about exactly where her body was found. I'm talking about the general area. In my Summer Wells series, I read to you statistics on child abductions. And in there, it talked about 600, I believe, abducted children whose cases were resolved. And there was a significant amount of people who abducted a child who were caught because they went back to the scene of the crime or back to where the body was located at some point. And I thought that was so fascinating because you wonder, like, why on earth would you do that, you know? But there's a psychology behind it. And some of them go back to see if the scene has anything left over that somebody can find, evidence. Some do it because they want to make sure the body's still there. And others are similar to like serial killers when they have like trophies and they keep something of their victims as a trophy. It's some type of connection to the person they killed. Now, we don't know what happened between Gabby and Brian. We don't know if it was premeditated. We don't know if he was like some, secret psychopath. We don't know, okay? Or was this a case of they were arguing and he went too far and she ended up dead? We don't know. And if it is something like that, a crime of passion type of killing, and he did care about Gabby prior to that, he may want to return to an area where they had a good time together, where it brings a good memory. Who knows? Nobody knows. And we still will just be continuing to wait and see what happens. We're kind of banking right now on either he ends up mentally suffering so badly out in wherever he is that he ends up just surrendering himself, or he, comes out of hiding at some point, or he's traveling between locations and he somehow makes a mistake and gets caught. How crazy would it be if, like, one day this week, reporters have started to kind of leave the house now at this point because things are just really dying down. It was like everything was going 90 miles an hour and it all kind of came to this screeching halt. And so some reporters are leaving. I said last night, they only have so many resources. If nothing's happening, they're not going to keep a reporter out there. But how crazy would it be if Brian just starts, strolling up on his house, walking down the street from the Carlton Reserve, and walks up and is just like, I give up. I'm done. Go ahead. Call the police. Have them arrest me. I actually saw that before in another case, and I've been racking my brain all day trying to remember what case it was. I'm going to figure this out because I'm one of those people, like, once I have something in my mind, like, I have to find the answer to it if it kills me. And I'll probably spend hours and hours and hours trying to find it, and I never will. But I do remember this, and I don't remember when or where. But I will find out. I think the media is giving Brian too much credit. I think they're speaking about him like he's some, experienced survivalist and or experienced fugitive. Like he's some dangerous criminal type of person. I don't know how to explain it, but there was a shooting recently in Florida as well, and the guy actually shot and killed a police officer. This particular guy, if you look at his history and what he did, he shot a police officer. It's freaking horrible. He was somebody I would consider dangerous, somebody that you want in custody immediately, because if he's capable of shooting a police officer in the head, he's capable of anything, right? Now you can say, well, Brian killed Gabby, so he's dangerous. Well, some people do just kill somebody that they're close to. They're not the type of person that's going to kill multiple people. That being said, for all we know, Brian is somebody who's killed before. We don't know, right? We don't have any evidence that he hasn't or has. At the same time, I just don't look at him that way. I just see this 23-year-old punk kid. That's what I see when I look at his pictures. I don't look at him and think that he's some dangerous fugitive who has all this experience to survive. I just don't see him that way. He's clearly a coward as well, and, you know, that's without question, right? Like, if you can't even face police to talk to them, I mean, how dangerous can he possibly be? But I think they're also trying to, like, make it seem like he's, like, this master survivalist. I mean, some of these survivalist type people, they, like, research and practice days at a time to survive, and they do all kinds of stuff. I don't take him as that. I think he's resourceful in nature. I think he's comfortable in nature. And I think that's about as far as it goes. Like, he knows how to make a campfire. He knows how to, which he's probably not doing because obviously the smoke would draw attention. But I think he could definitely make a fire. I think he definitely, because I saw him do it, catch fish with his bare hands. I think he's unbelievable at blending in with the environment and climbing. There's tons of pictures of him climbing. And I think that he definitely knew what he could take with him that would last for a great deal of time. Beyond that, I don't think he's a master survivalist of any kind. And then if you take that further, and he couldn't even stand the pressure of, you know, police making contact at his home, couldn't face her parents, couldn't handle any of the pressure, so he takes off. Then you think about him out there. How long is he going to mentally last? If he couldn't even handle those things, how long is he going to last out there for a significant amount of time by himself with very little items and any form of human contact? I just don't see that being the case. I don't think he's going to be able to handle that. So I do think that it's going to be one of the two things. Like I said, he's either going to mess up or he's going to have enough and just give up. I'm leaning more towards he's going to get to the point where mentally he just can't handle it anymore and he's just going to give up. And I don't bet money, but that's going to be my bet. So we'll see what happens. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing that I saw when I found the pictures that were posted on the 14th. The caption said it was on Monday the 13th. The picture of the parents returning home on Monday the 13th does show them in clothes that you would most likely wear if you were going to look for somebody in a swampy area. So I don't know what day they're claiming they went looking for him. Was it the 13th or the 14th? Maybe it's just a coincidence. I believe they're claiming the 14th, but I'm not 100% positive on that, is when they went to go look for him for a few hours. But that did look like they were out doing something that required the type of clothing they were wearing. So anyway, that's enough of me for now. I just wanted to share with you some of my thoughts. When I come on here and I talk to you about these types of cases, I feel like I'm talking to you like you're sitting in my living room. I wish that there was somebody here to talk back with me and we can kind of debate it civilly and discuss what, I'm saying. But I try to talk to you like you're here with me, which then causes me to kind of go off on my little tangents and rants, and you'll get used to it. After a while, you'll love me for it, I promise. Hopefully it sparks you to think about things a little bit further as well. And it's good and it's healthy and it's a mental exercise to think about all these different possibilities and whatnot. But tomorrow is Monday because this is Sunday. It's about 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to post this and get back to going to bed at a normal time because since this case began, I've mostly been going to bed really late. So I'm going to do that, and we will see what this week brings. I'm starting to wonder if they're going to be back at the Carlton Reserve again. I don't know, because Josh Taylor said that they don't have anything. They haven't found anything that, shows Brian's in there or alive or dead. So, after he said that, are they now going to continue there? Is the citizens complaining, like, why are you spending our taxpayer dollars for nothing when you have nothing at this point after 27 days? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see what happens and see if the WFLA helicopter goes out there to find out. And when we do, I will come to you with any updates and any thoughts that I'm having about those updates. And until next time, I'll see you soon.